We'll see when it says it's live. All right. Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Clinician Conversations with the team here at Chosen P LLC in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I am Dr. Leatrice Brooks, and we will let the team introduce themselves. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Benjamin, LPC. I work here with these cool people.
What's a LPC?
Oh, a licensed professional counselor. It's not just a bunch of letters. I
Thank
actually
you.
do have the schooling for what I do. Yeah,
Hey,
thanks for
hey.
reminding me.
Yep. Who
And
else?
I'm also a licensed professional counselor. My name's Laurel Huff.
Hi, my name is Jill Chastain, licensed professional counselor and also certified in whole food plant-based nutrition.
Period. Hey y'all, it's your fave social worker. I am Rachel Little and I am a LLMSW, so limited license master social worker.
Hello, I'm Shayanna Withers, and I am a TLLP, so temporary limited license psychologist.
All right. So today we are going to let me tell you a little bit about what Clinician Conversations is. It's an opportunity for us to talk about stuff that y'all might want to know about therapy, about therapists, about our approach to different things that may come up in therapy conversations, just kind of give you some behind the scenes insight on how we process things as mental health providers. So today we are talking about friend versus therapist. What's the diff? One of the things that you may have experience with or have heard people talk about, or I'll say this, and I told this person this, I told this person this, and so they won't be surprised if they hear me say it online. So somebody had experienced something that I'm close to, had experienced something, and that was, brought up a lot of emotions for them. And I said, have you thought about going to therapy? And she said, I don't need to go to therapy. That's what I got you for. I said, oh, no, 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 no.
Run that insurance card.
Because we've learned to have, I've learned how to have boundaries between like what is the lane between being a friend and being a therapist, because there really is a difference, right? And so one of the things that I said to her was, I said, look, nope. I am a friend to friend. I am a mentor to mentees. I am a therapist to clients, and you are not my client. So I will not be your therapist, right? And that said, I think in our everyday lives, sometimes we are close to people to the extent that we actually put therapist responsibilities on our friends. And that can really be taxing to the relationship. And I know that people want to show up for us and they want to be there for us and support us, but there's a difference between the kind of support that a therapist offers and a kind of support that a friend should be offering you. And one difference in particular, and we don't have to start here, but one difference sometimes is between empathy versus sympathy. Because sometimes there are people who are able to sympathize with us and to see what we're going through and be like, oh man, that sucks. But that's not really what you're going to get from a therapist, right? So there's this empathy component of we're able to connect to what you're experiencing in a different way. But then beyond that, to offer some recommendations that may help. So that said, you may not get the girl and you need to be, and you may not get that. Now you might, depending on your therapist and what you're talking about.
I was just gonna say, from the millennial perspective, a
Yeah.
therapist. So say it's a disagreement that happens at the store.
Mhm.
So as a millennial, your friend might be like, girl, you should just go in there and tell her off because she ain't got no business doing this. And yeah, hop over the counter, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas a therapist is like, you need to take a moment and, think about what's happening and walk
Gather your
away.
thoughts.
So it's just like there is a fine, it's a fine line, especially when you are super close to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the big difference between, at least for me, as I'm counseling somebody, and I do this naturally with most people, but I don't share it with people that are my friends. But with a client, I take like their situation that they've brought me, and I pick it up, and I turn it around and I'm going, oh, how did this happen? And then trying to figure out to a point where I could understand why they might make the decision they did. I might disagree with it, but I understand how they would get there, and then being able to give the client tools so they can also see that, okay, yes, I understand how I get there, but there's an alternate route that I probably shouldn't hop over the counter and beat the living daylights out of this person.
Right.
I might want
Right.
to, take a breath, kind of thing. And I think that's a huge difference. There's a lot more work involved up here in therapy than you would ever be expected or should do in a friendship relationship.
Mhm. There's more of a curiosity, and I would say perspectives. That's what came up for me when you were talking about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, instead of diving and jumping right in.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it also helps with helping them to process their feelings and
Yeah.
connect dots and not so much sometimes with friends they can you can get emotional with them and it's
Yeah.
not
I was
not
gonna say friends empathize like the wrong feelings.
not
We empathize with like the incorrect behaviors or like an emotional response instead of a response that requires you to take some thought.
for sure.
Thought and
Yeah.
responsibility,
That
usually.
impulsive piece,
Yeah.
the
Sure.
reaction piece versus
Yeah.
response.
Like, you should be angry at that person and that stuff.
Mhm.
You know, they kind of collaborate with you, and not the best of
They add some fuel to
influences.
the fire. They like,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. I should do this. Yeah.
And sometimes it's difficult when like you have that relationship with a friend to discern the difference.
Yeah.
And so like, you'll have a friend where part of a friendship is venting and like, letting it off. But then it's just like you do as a therapist have to, for me, I know I have to say it out loud, like, girl, you are a friend right now. This is friend ratio. This is not therapist ratio, because they give two different responses. So that, and I don't think friends that are on the other side of it take that into consideration all the time. They, like you said, Leatrice, will jump to conclusion like, well, girl, you a therapist, so you should know what to do. And I'm like, well, I'm not on the clock, so I'm gonna give you an after 5 response.
I think what comes up for me is like friends, like in a friend setting, like you listen to respond. And then in a therapist setting, like we're listening to understand and
Mhm.
process. So
Like that.
And I
Yeah.
think part of that processing that comes into play with us is, the first appointment that we have is an intake session, and we're gathering all of this information, right? So I know when I see a client and we start talking about things, all of this history and context come to my mind, and that's where some of the follow-up questions come from. But it's also putting those pieces together, right? So in that moment when your friend is going in with you, they ain't thinking about your kids. In the
Right.
Yeah.
Right? You ever see somebody in the street cutting up and their kids right there looking traumatized? Right?
Mhm.
Is that like they're not thinking about the fact that you got a job and you need to eat? And why you going in on your boss like this? Like maybe you don't like them and this job is not a good fit for you, but you need a job tomorrow. So, like breathe
Yep.
and think it through.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good. As a therapist, we consider the whole context of the individual because we have access to it. I mean, that's the whole point. People share stuff with us that they probably wouldn't even necessarily share with their friends sometimes. So yeah.
And I think people share perspectives with us that they don't necessarily share with their friends, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes I think people they may share so like anger is a secondary emotion. So there's always hurt behind the anger. I may share the anger with my friend, but then I get in therapist and I'm crying because
Okay.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't see you
connecting
going
with the
off.
hurt.
You all broke down on the couch.
Broke down. Do you hear me dripping and everything?
yeah. Messy
It'd be the ugly
crying.
cry with the snot. You'd be like, well, you need a second.
right? Like really connecting to the what's actually happening,
For sure.
where you may feel like you can't do that with your friends, because sometimes too, the way that we show up in our friendships is impacted by the response we think we're going to get from them. Because if
Mm-hmm.
I know that my
Yeah.
therapist is going to be here and they're going to hear me, they're going to tell me if I'm tripping or if I'm acting crazy, or, you know, they're going to tell me like, validate the emotion to you, what you were saying, Jill. They're going to validate the emotional experience and help us to think it through in an intentional way versus that, like you said, Shanna, that reactive
Yeah.
way.
True.
Because
Yeah.
we can feel it with our client and still not be placing a judgment on it or
Mhm.
taking it over and saying, this is exactly what you should do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
At least you
Yeah.
better be able to do that, or else the therapy can break down
Yeah.
real quick if you get
Yeah.
into the judgment thing.
So this is like related to this topic. It's a really unfortunate incident. There was I was reading a story about, there was a young woman who was on social media and something had happened. And she had talked about this is what she was going to do. And everybody on social media gassed her up.
Oh
And
yeah,
then
in Detroit.
and the next day the post was she was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then crickets. Nobody said anything else because she went and did the thing and everybody was in there with her jumping on it. Nobody paused and said, hey, like, let's think this through. And then it cost her her life.
Yeah.
You know, and I think again, we don't think that. And nobody wants to think that, oh, this is how this is gonna go. But I mean, look, it's a lot of stuff happening out there today, and you never know who you talking to, who you running up on, who
Right. Who know who got what?
look,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so you really just want to kind of slow down and be intentional. And one of the things that I know I talk to clients about is what you want to do consistent with the person that you want to be? Is that how you want to show up? Is that the reputation? I will tell y'all, because I know I told the staff before. I don't know if I ever said it on Facebook Live. So y'all heard this before. It was something that really brought to my awareness, like how you present. So one time I was at a restaurant on the other side of the clear opposite side of town. And we had been there for a minute and waiting and everybody being seated and we still standing there. And of course, now it's like okay, it's a bunch of Negroes standing here and we ain't got seated. So now I didn't even turn up on the people, but I just went to the hostess and I was like, hey, what's up? What's going on? Right. And I probably looked like it in my face, but I ain't say no crazy words. Right. Do you know 2 weeks later, I was on the complete opposite side of town in the parking lot at the store, and somebody was like, you was at so and so, and you said something. It's like, what? Let
Never.
me get my life right. Because that is not the reputation that I want. And so again, it's that piece of like how we show up carries.
Yeah.
And it's gonna walk with us. And we might be again reacting in that moment, but that's not what we want. Like I tell people all the time, look, if I'm tripping, tell me. Don't have me out here looking a mess.
Looking crazy.
And look, and I don't know it, like, because when it catch up with me, you in trouble too. Because you ain't say nothing. Why
You
you
didn't
say
stop.
nothing? Right?
Yeah.
That's what I expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think in friendships, kind of along with some of the things you were talking about, it was we still put on a mask a lot of times with our friends. If we've got to be the person that has it all together, or we're the cool person in the relationship, or we're the fun person, we have to be those people in a friendship. Well, we have to. We're deciding to be those people versus who we actually are under the surface of all that masking and such. So,
And you know what? I really live into just being my authentic self,
yeah.
whoever that is. And I'm gonna tell you, y'all know me, right? I like to learn and grow and develop. People don't even last with me in personal relationships and friendships if they not learning and growing and developing, because I can't. That's just
Yeah.
me. I show up like that at work. I show up like that at home, and like it's painful for me to watch somebody not grow. Like it's just painful for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
when I know that there's a different
Potential.
option. And so I'm gonna be her all the time. And we gonna move and grow together. And as long as we doing that, we good. And if you're not doing that, and I'm gonna say you because I'm gonna do it. So if the other person is not doing that, it's not gonna work out. It's just not. Because I'm not gonna turn her off. I'm not. I'm
Yeah.
not. And it helps to make decisions about friendships a lot faster in terms of
Mhm.
knowing whether or not it's gonna work, you know. And so I think too, we have to, like, as therapists, be intentional that we are drawing the line between friendship versus therapist, but not masking the parts of us that are our true selves.
Right. Yep.
And that just takes, I think it takes practice
For sure.
to know
I
how
know
to.
something that comes to mind just like in hearing therapist versus friend.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody else does, but I have like one of my best friends is a therapist as well. And that's a tricky relationship because we both have like our own therapists, but it's hard for us to really turn on and off a therapist response versus a friend response because both of our brains are constantly in therapist mode. And so when we are like having just a friend conversation, like we'll have to tell each other, like, okay, girl, like, no, this is after five Rachel, this is after five Ashley. Like this, we two different people. But yeah, no, so I don't know if anybody else has had that experience where a close friend or somebody you're close with is also a therapist or a clinician.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually visualize, or I'll even say it out loud. Okay, I'm letting go of like dropping the mic or letting go of the therapist portion of my mind. And usually it just is a real quick, because you're right. I am always in therapist mode in some way, shape, or form where I can dissect things and things like that. But if somebody brings me something and just sharing, yeah, I have to go because I enjoy doing it too. That's the hard thing is I like doing the whole, oh, you brought me a problem. Oh, yay, I get to play around. But yeah, if it's a friend and they're just sharing, I'm gonna go, okay, I'm not gonna do it. All right, stop yourself. All right, and just go, hey, yeah, you want another, I don't know, want another glass of wine or something like that. Which a friend would do. It's like, hey, just listen. Oh, that sucks. Or something like that. Just give that response versus the whole, now let me tell you the whole 9 yards of everything that you've done and such when they're not asking. It worked. I'll tell you where it works really great with my
Where
wife. With my wife, if she's, I practice the whole just the listening and experiencing without the giving solution and or expounding unless she really asks, because that's not a good thing to do. Don't
Right.
therapize your partner.
That's right.
Not a good idea.
That's right.
But that's why I practice that shutting it down. Like, okay, she's not asking for my therapeutic expertise, even though it's amazing and awesome when I do it. But it's hard to do though. I agree with you. Really hard.
especially when it's a part of you, like you
Yeah.
know, therapist is only a part of my identity. Part of my identity is helping people
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
adding my 2 cents in, like even when y'all think it's not necessary, and I do. Like
Right.
that's just a part of me. So it is just like, okay, is this a friend response or a therapist response? Is can be difficult.
Oh yeah,
And I
definitely.
think too, like what you said, Benjamin, too, is just kind of stating it obvious, like, yep, I'm taking off my therapist hat and I'm in friend mode, and just really kind
I've
of
used that very illustration too. Yeah.
and about that. Another dynamic too is what I hear and what I've experienced is like sometimes friend versus therapist, when you have a problem, sometimes friends, they don't know how to carry that. So if you share something meaningful or something hurtful, they may, if they are, I don't know, unavailable,
Hmm.
emotionally unavailable, or they just don't know how to process that, you can share something that's really hurtful or meaningful, and that person that you share it with may not know how to handle that. So it can feel to the other person like just their feelings are minimized or diminished. So I hear that a lot too, and that can be really challenging for people, and it causes people to just keep it inside and just kind of play the role, so to speak, and that's not healthy at all.
Yeah.
Have friends that don't know what you're going through because you know the response that you're going to get from them is not what you need.
You learn pretty quick when you are invalidated, even if your friends don't mean to do that.
Yeah,
Right.
they don't
Right.
know how to handle it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a reminder of like how much space that we create in ourselves to hold everybody else's stuff. And so I know sometimes for me, like I forget that everybody is not a therapist and doesn't have the emotional capability to hold and hear and receive what everybody, what I'm saying. And so, it comes off as invalidating my feelings or emotions, but really it's like they don't know, like they're in like a WTF mode where they just like, what?
Oh,
Like,
no.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that can be a difficult balance to navigate as well.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
like that you said that because empathy is not something we know that not everybody has it, but I think we tend to think that people can learn it quickly or just turn it on and off. And that's not necessarily true. And if you are highly skilled in it, then it can feel like, well, everybody, right, has
Right.
this or can just somehow hone into it.
So full
Yes.
circle, I think that also then may impact why friends have the response that they have, right? So back to the top, because they don't have the capacity to empathize.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
all they can do is mirror the reaction you have.
Right.
That's all they got. They don't know. So we're telling them this is the reaction that I'm having. They don't know. Maybe I should not encourage him or her to go off the deep end in this moment. They just trying to connect for the sake of, what they feel like a friend looks like or a friend is. And then, but that may not necessarily be what we need. Like I know, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that has this experience where I have clients sometimes, they have people in their lives that they're talked to, but they're like, I've been waiting all week to tell you this because they know I need to hear a different thought than
For
or
sure.
perspective than the one that I know that I can get outside a therapy relationship.
Yep.
I
Very
think too,
true.
and like we look for our friends to empathize, but then when we realize that they're not empathizing, we got to put your therapist hat back on and realize that it's not your job to teach them how to empathize. Like that's something that they need to go to their therapist and talk about and work on. So that can be hard too. It's just like, girl, why you don't get it? Why you not? Why can't you empathize with me? But then it's just like, yeah, you got to learn that on your own.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the lines too that we have to figure out is or just be intentional with is when does this conversation start to elicit that therapist part of me? And at that point I'm like, nope, I'm backing out. I ain't backing out because I'm in way too deep at this point. Like if I feel like I want to whip out the feeling chart, this is
Okay. Point to
Yep.
where you're
right. Or if I want to tell you how to do feeling where I'm like, yeah, nope, not my lane in this relationship. That's no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. Well, and I feel it when I go into therapy mode. It's like if you've ever seen those Iron Man movies where all the screens come up and they're all floating around and such. That's what it feels like for me. And when that pops up, and I'm starting to know your past, present, future, and how they all connect. I know I'm in the wrong mode. I'm not in friend mode anymore. I got to just breathe and close the windows. Bring it all down. Take another sip of your coffee or soda or eat a piece of cheeseburger, get back into normal, be present with your friends. Don't be into that mode. It is hard though. It's such a fun. It's it's hard work therapy, but also it is. I don't think I'm alone in this. I enjoy to a very high degree doing what I do, so it's very tempting to use those tools. We're good. You can probably use them for bad stuff, but for good, just to, like you were saying, Rochelle, I like helping people, and you were saying that you like helping people, so it's like, oh, I just want to use this. But if we do that with everybody in our lives, we will be completely burned out and not actually be able to help the actual clients that we're meant to, be working with if all of our friends have access to us.
Compassion fatigue is real, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what happened before I became a counselor. Everybody in my life knew that I was capable of that empathy and compassion and stuff, and they would
Yep.
utilize it because I never put the barrier up. So, but
Yeah. So I would say, if you are having, you have a friend and, well, let me ask this question. I'm gonna put it as a question and pose it to the therapist. How would you help somebody to identify when they need to go see a therapist? How does a person like that is having some friendships and I feel like this friend is showing up for me? How do I know that, like, oh no, I should be talking to a therapist about this, not necessarily my friend?
When I have to really take a minute to say, I'm not a therapist right now, I'm a friend, is when I'm like, okay, like if I can feel like my response is not going to be appropriate or something that, we reflect back on it and they be like, remember you told me to do X, Y, and Z. If I'm not proud of what that is and, I'm going through that in my head, like that's the moment where I'm like, you should probably go talk to somebody else.
Yes. So if you are the friend in that
Mhm.
situation, how would your friend know? Say you got two people and they're friends.
Right.
How would they know I should probably take this to a therapist and not keep talking to my friend about this?
If the other friend is like continuously validating what they're saying and not giving any other like point of view, like if they just restating what you're saying, like a therapist is intended to give a different perspective. So if you are just getting the same perspective, then you should probably seek another perspective.
yeah, yeah.
I would add to that, if you are, I'm gonna describe it this way, overly seeking your friend, if you are seeking your friend, then you probably need a therapist, right? So like this situation happens and I am going to this person, not necessarily to vent, like, girl, let me tell you what happened, but like, I need to figure this out. And if that's the role that you're putting that person in, where they supposed to help you to figure it out, then you also might need a therapist. Because I think it's, again, I've had situations where people, they kind of like, they use therapy as this, place to put out fires. And that's not really what it is, right?
Right.
And I think we use friends that way too sometimes, right? As a place to put out fires, when really a therapist is going to help you to develop skills that you can use over and over again to help you to learn how to, one, put out your own fires, but two, prevent the fires from occurring to begin with. And so if I got to keep going to this person and I'm not learning anything, where I probably should be learning something, then the therapist is the one that's supposed to help me to learn it. A friend is
Yeah.
just supposed to show up for you. But if there's a growth edge, then it's it's a therapist that I need. And it's okay to tell people that. That let's look at getting you a therapist, right? Like this is more than what I want to be carrying myself.
Yeah.
And having somebody to commiserate with you is not productive in the long run.
Right. Right. This is one of the professions where we're actually trying to not have a dependent relationship, and we're working towards them not being, where a friendship can be can become very dependent. So that might even be another line, is if you're feeling that, like you were saying, that dependency, then okay, that's definitely a place where a therapist should be coming in and allowing and empowering that person with the proper tools. Because it's really about giving, like you said, a tool bag to somebody and showing them how to use them. And sometimes actually telling them this tool exists. Because people sometimes don't even know the tool exists.
For sure. And this is when you use this tool, because they might have the tool and have mastered the tool, but then using it, in the wrong
Yeah, they're using a hammer
Sick.
on a piece of meat to cut it. And it
Mhm.
just pulverizes the meat. Doesn't make it do anything. So yeah.
Too, when
If
they
you and your friend having the same conversation over and over again about the same kinds of
Okay,
things,
that's what I was just getting ready to
it's
say.
time to take
yeah,
it somewhere else.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's right. Took it right
Mhm.
out because I was thinking like dumping when those friends that dump and it's like, yeah, no,
Oof, yeah.
that's when you need a therapist. You should go see someone to actually get to the root.
Problem.
And
Yeah.
I would say the other way too. So to notice, okay, am I noticing that I'm editing myself more to the point that I have all this stuff that I need to talk about, but I'm very aware that there is a give and take in my friendships.
Mhm. Yeah,
Very true.
absolutely.
parting thought, Shanna.
Yeah, so what I've been thinking about and what's been said already is like that capacity, like, if your friend no longer has that capacity where like basically the friend is um, maybe unintentionally invalidating the other friend because they no longer have the capacity to hold what's being said, then yeah, it's definitely time to go see a therapist.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So don't be afraid to reach out to connect to somebody. Like Benjamin said, our job is to work ourselves out of a job. Like it is amazing when somebody graduates from therapy, right?
For
If
sure.
you want to call it a graduation. And I'm not gonna even like not just leave therapy because they think they done, but you as a therapist agree, like, yes, you ready.
Got it.
You are ready
Yeah.
to go out there and do your thing. And I know you gonna figure it out and you have the tools to help you further on. And that doesn't mean that you don't ever go back to therapy because sometimes major life transitions happen or situations. And you just need a touch point
For
to
sure.
reiterate the things that you've already learned. And so that happens too. But yes, don't be afraid to connect with somebody. And if you're not sure if therapy is right for you or could help, then reach out to somebody and ask that question and say, I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if I need therapy or not. We'll tell you.
Hmm. Exactly. We
We'll tell
will.
you.
Yeah,
Yep.
really.
Yeah. So
I was gonna say, moral of the story for me, or like, a wrapping point up for me is stop using y'all friends. They not your therapists, okay?
Amen.
No, but for real, don't exhaust your friends and make them not want to be your friend because they always got to be a therapist. So, go do your research and find you a therapist so you can have a therapist and a friend. And then maybe you
Yeah.
and your therapist can
There you
have a
go.
good relationship. So then you talk to them as if they were your friend, but they're not.
Yes, there you go. Because therapists just want to have fun too sometimes. It's true.
Mhm.
all right. Well,
I
that is
think we're
all for
good.
today. Yeah, so thank you for joining us, for watching this on the replay or however it is that you are seeing this. And we'll be back in a couple months with another Clinician Conversations.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.